Thank you. Time is killing education. In a recent study performed in the state of Colorado, a research team looked at high school students who are graduating and then moving directly into college. They found that only 70% make that transition immediately. After the 5-year study concluded, they found that only 23% after 5 years had graduated college. This is a problem. Time to completion is a problem in many forms. One of them being cost. If we look at the goods and services and the increase in which people are seeing the rise of cost, there is nothing more than education, fees, and college tuition that are driving those prices too high for some to participate. When we look at the factors of time to completion, there are many aspects, cost being one of them, college schedules, professors, electives, aspects that keep people from skill sets that allow them to be able to advance into industry. Additionally, we have employers who are pushing back on the return on investment of what's delivered to them in form of a graduate. They say that the skills gap is too wide. So employers have started investing into personal training, continued education. Additionally, they invest into their own university system. How is it that we prevent people from being able to transition from education into industry and make it so costly? We must find alternative options for students to be able to be trained and for people to be able to go and work. We can value education in many forms. Can we not give credit for travel, for service, for opportunities where people get out and spend time with other people, whether in an externship, internship, or an apprenticeship? Can we not create a system that allows for credentialing, regardless of what your background is, that rewards productivity, and that awards people whom are hard workers? I believe we can. We live in a knowledge-based economy. Never at any time in the world have we had more opportunities to learn all around us. The devices that we have bring knowledge to us immediately. The Institute for Future recently had a study where they have predicted that by 2030, 85% of jobs that will exist have not yet been created. When we look at that, one must think we have to disrupt education, not just reform it, not just to decentralize education and put it online, but fundamentally we have to disrupt the way that we think about education. Another factor of why time is killing education is accreditation. When you look at the accreditation process, it's a 3 to 5 year process. 2 years of that being that you have to spend time setting up your organization for an external review, for an army of representatives who will come and look at every aspect as to why or why not you're effective as an institution. That will take another year. If you look at programs and specifically the degree paths that we choose, it takes nearly a year to 18 months for that to be created. And then on top of that, we look at the time to, again, accredit it. Do we have current learning actually happening within our institutions? I would tell you no. I would submit to you that because the time frame takes so long to get something accredited, approved, regulated, that we're missing out on viable and essential innovation. Education is innovation, but education is a lifelong process. So why hold people back from the opportunity for them to learn and to earn simply because they don't have a piece of paper? Can we not adopt better credentialing systems that allow people to be able to stack their competencies towards something greater? Can we not give the decision-making power to the students and allow them to customize their education while following in the metrics of time in seat, competency, and portfolio? I submit to you again that we can and that we must. When we look at a market growth segment or metrics within a market, we have to look at what accreditation initially started doing, which was to provide performance and quality, which would standardize a benchmark for everybody to be able to adhere to. That works for some time. But what we need today is the second revolution, which is actually focusing on speed, convenience, and affordability, making education scalable. Because this is not a localized problem, this isn't a community problem. This is a global problem. We cannot just simply sit and point our fingers at institutions and accrediting bodies. We cannot look at government and say, it's your fault. Because at the end of the day, we need to divorce the lie and marry the truth. We are responsible for our own education. Our investment into education, I assure you that there are few investments that are more valuable, specifically into the time. When you go home tonight, do you spend your time scrolling and swiping, watching the latest show that you're catching up on, binging on? How do you spend your time? Do you walk across the street and spend time with your neighbors? Do you go and help and serve? All of these are forms of education, and they're forms of connection. As mentioned, we have never had more opportunity to connect with people globally, but feel so much disconnection, feel so much despair, so much emptiness, because we can't simply connect with our neighbors and our friends. The reality is that if we do not invest into our time, time unfortunately will not invest into us. A good way of thinking about time is that we have approximately 80,000 seconds in a day. To put that into terms of money, how would you spend $80,000 a day, knowing that at the end of the day, your bank account was empty? If we think of that in time, we can start understanding that the value of time and the value of money are very similar. When we think about these time-wasting activities that we do or don't do, here's a couple that you should consider. TV watching, social media, procrastination, worrying. We must build ourselves into the people whom we desire to become, the best version of ourselves. That's education. And it may not happen in a classroom. It may not happen in some institutional hall, in a library. It may happen simply by talking to somebody and sharing ideas with them. That is education. There's a technology evolution that many of us are aware of, and we must be on board with. Not only from a delivery standpoint and bringing education to us quicker with more efficacy, but to be able to learn and develop ourselves in a format that allows us to be able to compete in the future. See, when we go into industry, we do not just compete with the people who are in cubicles around us. We do not just compete on a localized level. We are now globally competing with people who want our jobs and are very hungry. And not that there's not enough jobs to go around, but are you doing the thing that you're passionate about? Are you doing the thing that you are meant to do? Are you educating yourself in such a way to where now you can become the teacher, where you can give back? I ascertain that we must learn know, and understand technology in such a deep way wherein when augmented reality, virtual reality, comes to our front door and in our homes, that we can learn and that we can develop and that we can retain and that we can build ourselves into the individuals whom in the future will have to be technologists in some form or another. I created an acronym for this event here, and I think it's applicable and I'd like to share it with you. T, teamwork. We cannot look at every other opportunity of learning, engagement, higher education, and say that they're at fault. We need to make them our team members. We need to hold them accountable and find ways to eliminate time that separates people from opportunity, but we need to have a team that supports our learning initiatives. That could be a dean of a college, that could be a president of a college, that could be a family member, a friend, that could be anyone who cares about your outcome. And your outcome must be lifelong learning. I, infectious. Be infectious, intentional, and inspirational. In this way, you will become the person whom others look to for information, for opportunity, and opportunity will find you. Infectious people just draw it into their lives. Be infectious. M, manage. Manage your time, but also manage your schedule. One of my favorite authors once said, schedule your priorities, not prioritize your schedule. That's Stephen Covey. We must utilize the resources around us, and if we don't have them, have the courage to go out and get them. Ask for people to help and to be part of your team, to work with you for an outcome for which you're looking forward to, not only to bless your own lives, but to bless the lives of everybody that you come in contact with. E, educate. And I'm not just talking about the principle of educate or education. I'm talking about the ability to learn, do, and to repeat, and then gain expertise. You must be able to put yourself in a situation to where you can learn, whatever the environment might be, not regurgitate, but replicate results. Because in life, results are what we provide our living from. Results are what we build relationships with. Not that we have to be perfect, that's not what I'm saying. But we need to be teachable and we need to be able to learn. Finally, this is a special day for all of us worldwide. If you know what happened on June 5th, 1947, Secretary of State George C. Marshall presented a plan. If you remember, this time frame was just when Europe was being ravished or finished being ravaged from World War II. What Marshall stood up and said that day at a small campus at Harvard was he presented an idea. He presented the Marshall Plan, wherein he presented a plan that would start pumping stimulus dollars into parts of Europe so that people could be educated, so that people could be entrepreneurs, so that people would be able to rebuild, revitalize, restructure, reinvent themselves. He stood with others that day to be able to create a new plan that will allow people to become self-reliant, self-sufficient. I believe that it is time that we do the same. Will you stand with George C. Marshall and the others who made the Marshall Plan a reality? Will you stand for the people whom cannot stand for themselves, for the future generations that look to you to solve the problems that we are facing in education. But not just education, it's our economy. We must educate. Will you stand with those not represented here today? And will you stand for yourself to be able to take learning and advance it into the future with technology, with resources, and with the appropriate team to make the Marshall Plan a reality today? Thank you.